My name is Maya Hunter, and I am a Life Design alum along with the current president of LDO's club, offering the Career Navigation Network. I am so excited to introduce you to my fellow classmates and their truly remarkable work. Each year, a group of students enter the lab and begin learning about the design thinking process, life design, and purpose pursuit. Once they have been exposed to these concepts, each student creates a project that they work on for the rest of the year. We then present these projects at Exhibition Night, which is a school-wide celebration of student work. After that event is finished, students in the Life Design Lab continue working on their projects, but then shift their focus towards more of their learning, which brings us to tonight. Life Design Night is all about our students presenting their learning. You will experience the presentations of learnings from 12 of our students shortly, as they represent a wide range of grade levels, project types, and experiences. Additionally, we will be premiering the digital POLs of our students in the MHS Life Design channel. Our first keynote of the night will be presented by Janelle De Peralta.
Hi everyone, my name is Janelle De Peralta. I'm a sophomore at Morristown High School, and this is my first year in the Life Design Lab. Growing up, my world was simple. It was filled with princess dolls, colorful art, and most importantly, anything pink. But there was one thing about me that wasn't so bold. I was extremely shy. I was the type of person to stay quiet even when I had something to share with others and constantly worry about how others viewed me. This continued to follow me throughout my middle school years. When I entered high school, I felt like I needed a way to succeed. I was so used to trying to be a perfect person in the eyes of others, so naturally I created 3 strict rules for myself. 1. Be the perfect student, to me getting nothing lower than an A. 2. Be the perfect friend, and 3. Listen to what others tell me. I remember telling myself anything that didn't meet these standards meant that I was simply not doing my best and that I wasn't enough. For a while, those rules worked. During my entire freshman year, they gave me a sense of purpose. I chased straight A's, put others before myself, and followed expectations instead of my own voice. From an outside perspective, it probably looked like I had everything perfectly put together. At the beginning of my sophomore year, that's when everything changed. I took on more personal problems both in and out of school. I tried my best to fulfill my 3 rules, but I came to a hard loss. The A's on tests I worked so hard for didn't feel like enough anymore. My friendships started to change and some people around me became distant. After spending so much time listening to everyone else around me and trying to make them happy, I realized something uncomfortable. I didn't even know what I wanted. The cost of meeting everyone else's expectations was losing a sense of who I truly was. That's when I walked into life design. At first, I didn't realize the impact that it would have on my life. But for the first time, there wasn't a perfect grade to chase on a test. When I was asked to create a project of my choosing with no strict rules, it felt strange at first, but I also felt really hopeful. As I thought about where to start, I realized I can maybe reconnect with the old hobby of mine, art. I've always loved drawing and creating, but instead I decided to challenge myself with learning something new. Jag snails. At first it wasn't perfect. I spent time watching tutorials, practicing on myself, and making mistakes. But instead of giving up, I kept going, and slowly I started to improve. By doing my family's nails, then my close friends' nails. Once I created my own Instagram account for marketing my nail art, peers around me reached out to me. At first it was surprising, but it also felt exciting to see something I created being recognized by others. That's when I realized something important. I love working for myself and creating something that makes other people feel confident and happy. At the critique nights, where students presented their work and speakers came to share their story to us, that's when another important spark occurred for me. I remember going to the first critique night and meeting Jesse, the owner from Rose Coffee House. I was intrigued to speak to him about his own journey and how he knew that this is what he wanted to do. However, there are already people talking to him. I remember waiting and waiting and waiting for an opening or chance for me to come up to him. I asked Mr. Daly what I should do, and he recommended that I take initiative and insert myself into the conversation as best as I could. That's exactly what I did. I was able to speak to him and ask for advice despite doubting myself in the beginning. Till this day, I'm beyond grateful for the push of encouragement that Mr. Daly gave to me. After the first night, I attended 3 out of 4 critique nights, and on each one, I didn't wait for anyone to give me approval to talk to the speakers, but confidently went to speak to them myself. Doing nails helps push me out of my comfort zone as a naturally shy person. It allowed me to own my own income and gave me the opportunity to provide a service for others. And for the first time, I was doing something not because I was told to, but because I chose to. I didn't stop there. Another passion of mine was baking. After seeing great success in my nail side hustle, I realized I could turn another hobby of mine into something more. So I began baking cookies and selling them to people I already knew and those I knew through nails. Now I have 2 side hustles going, nails and baking. They didn't just help me earn money. Life design did not just provide a class for me to pass, but they all helped me grow into the person I am today. Outside of my projects, I replaced my self-doubt and became more confident in the person I am, knowing I am capable of learning a new skill and getting good at it. I have learned to separate my identity from my struggles and realizing that it does not shrink the potential I have. Even as a natural introvert, these side hustles have pushed me out of my comfort zone to find my own voice again. I learned that sharing my talent isn't just about showing off, it's about standing behind my work and owning my value. One of the biggest shifts, though, is that I've stopped waiting. I no longer wait for approval or for anyone to hand me an opportunity. I move forward with the knowledge that I don't need anyone else's green light to start making the decisions I want for my life. I began this year trying to live by rules that didn't fit who I wanted to be. I thought I lost control I had over my life and wasn't sure how I could pick myself back up. But today I have a new set of rules. Ones that allow for mistakes, changes, and growth. 1, progress over perfection. 2, don't dwell on the past, but learn from it. 3, live with the purpose I choose. My world is still pink, it's still sweet, and most importantly, it's still me. But now it's a world where I make my own decisions and a life I will continue to create for myself with no one else's permission. Thank you.
A freshman and first-year student in the life design class. I've always known I wanted to take this class. I've gone to the exhibition nights for years, my dad presented at a critique night, and I loved the idea of creating my own project. But I never actually thought about what that would be. One day, I was at my sister's middle school field hockey game, and I noticed that the team was smaller than I remembered. I played field hockey for over 6 years, 3 of them with the middle school program, and those years had meant so much to me, so it hurt me to see the amount of growth going down. Around the same time, I was buying my first new field hockey stick, and I was shocked by how expensive a good field hockey stick was. It got me thinking, how could these middle school kids all be able to afford nice and new equipment, not to mention the amount of equipment just needed to save city? And I wondered if this somehow connected to the amount of kids that were signing up for sports. So I decided to do something about it. When I first pitched the idea, I didn't even know what I was talking about or how I would get it done. I started thinking what I wanted the end result to look like. I finally decided I wanted an event where the community could get together and receive free equipment that would give them new opportunities and help get participation up in the town sports. The first thing that I did was email all my old and new coaches to get a base information for my project. By asking them questions, I learned that the main reason that participation was going down was because of the price of sports equipment. This information was a great way to jumpstart my project, and I was able to get started. The next thing I did was where my road to evolution started. During class, I had started searching for nonprofit organizations that had the same motives as me. I wanted a template, a business idea that I could base my project off of. After searching, I stumbled across an organization called Leveling the Playing Field. Leveling the Playing Field is a nonprofit that uses the community to get used sports equipment to the people who aren't able to afford it. I was very impressed by the work that they had done, and I decided to reach out. I sent an email, but I was terrified. It was scary to me, opening up to these people that I didn't know. I checked the email a million times, making sure that I was good enough. I finally sent it, but I wasn't really expecting anything. A few days later, I got a response back asking for a call. This made my stomach drop. I'd never been in this situation with an adult, especially with ones I was asking for help. I was in contact with the operations manager at Leveling the Playing Field, and we set up a date, and I was immediately faced with my first problem. What would I even say to this person? I realized that not only did I not know how to talk to him, I also didn't even know what I wanted to get from this conversation. I brainstormed for hours, overthinking every little thing. Days later, I finally figured out what I wanted to say, and I wrote down everything, even down to the filler words I was using. It's important to know that I've always been a sociable person. I was always the first to go up in a store to ask for help, always the one to order for the table. My sister would always volunteer me to talk to people, because I was made out to be the most confident. So when I was suddenly so anxious to talk to this person, I was scared. I wasn't used to this fear, and it felt like I was letting my people and myself down. Before the day of the call, all week, I had a horrible knot in my chest. I kept replaying the same question in my head. Will they think my project is unachievable? Will they think that I'm not serious about this? I was stressed and going deeper and deeper into a spiral of fear. The day of the call, I was so nauseous, I felt sick. I was thinking about just canceling on the spot, which might sound overdramatic, but that's just how scared I was. The minute he answered my first question, my fears were washed away. I felt like a weight was lifted off my shoulders. I was able to share what I was passionate about, and thankfully this person was willing to listen. He gave me help with what I was going to do in the future, and even gave me a way to reach out to him if I needed assistance later on. In that moment, the heavy weight of fear had finally vanished, and it was replaced by a sense of freedom and confidence that allowed me to move forward. At this point of the year, I had even begun to plan the event that I want to hold in just a few months. I was still stressing about what the final product would be, but with this newfound confidence, I was able to get things started. I thought about it and decided I wanted to focus on the recreational sports in our town and get more participation for them by getting the families who can't afford it the equipment they need. To do this, I needed to reach out to as many adults who were associated with this as I could, like Women from Leveling the Playing Field and Kate and Nis from the Devil's Youth Foundation. Although I was scared, having meetings with similar people under my belt gave me so much more confidence. I was emailing people left and right, even getting meetings in person with many of them. I was able to reach out to the athletic directors here at our school, and I've been in close contact with them throughout this project. The presentation nights have also helped me so much. I suddenly had the confidence to go up to our presenters at critique night and ask them for help. I was confident in telling the people who came to my table my story and asking them for help. I met tons of adults who were more than willing to give me assistance, which has been instrumental for my project. While this was all happening, I had a lot going on in my personal life. The field hockey season had brought me a lot of stress and anxiety. To be honest, I was slowly falling apart. I went through a dark and anxious period. My problem was I wasn't telling anyone about it. I was always down, but I kept to myself and acted like everything was fine to my friends and family. I didn't want to burden anyone with my problems, so I didn't tell them. The more I kept to myself, the worse my anxiety got. One day, I couldn't take it anymore. One long conversation with my parents later, I had spilled everything, and I was signed up for my first therapy session. And again, I was terrified when the day came. The familiar knot in my chest was back again, but this time I felt prepared. Before I started my project, I had zero confidence talking to any adults in any time. If I could talk to these people for my project, how hard could this be? Well, it wasn't anything like hopping on a call with executive producers. I no longer felt scared to stand in front of an adult and tell them things I needed help with. My anxiety started slowly getting better, something that is only possible because I gained the courage to talk to adults. I've also been able to talk to more adults, even outside the intimate space of therapy. I was able to confidently talk to my coaches, teachers, and even random strangers. This new confidence has been so important currently, but I know it will also be very important in my later years. I was always worried about the future, mostly because I was scared I wouldn't be able to get things done by myself. I didn't know if I would have the confidence to ask my future professors for help, or even go to the doctor on my own. I now feel confident that I will be able to do these things by myself because of the experiences I've had. Now, I have a solid plan for my event, a sports equipment drive on June 13th here on the field. I plan to host the teams of the recreational sports in Morristown, and families will be able to receive free equipment and sign up for these sports. So while the physical parts of this project are complete, the mindset that I developed is just beginning to take shape. Through this project, I've learned something far greater than just how to talk to adults. Bravery isn't a trait, it's the act of doing what scares you. While I may have gotten better at communications, the real breakthrough was realizing that success doesn't require a lack of fear. It requires the bravery to act on my ideas anyway.
Hello, my name is Dante Briner, and I'm a freshman in the Lifetime program. My passion has always been football. I remember when I first saw a football game playing on the TV, I was immediately obsessed. I love the high energy and the physicality, and later asked my my mom to sign me up for football when I was in second grade. From there, football has been my #1 hobby, whether that was playing it or watching it. However, as much as I love playing football, the idea of coaching it sounds even better. So, when I first heard about this class, I immediately knew what I wanted my project to be about. This made for a great opportunity to further deepen my understanding of football strategy. I decided to create a professional football playbook. Playbooks in the NFL have nearly 1,000 pages and are worked on by entire coaching staffs of 50+ people, so taking it on alone would be very challenging. I knew it was a very big task, but I wanted to maximize learning opportunity. But I definitely had some concerns about this project going into it. Even working on it every class from bell to bell would most likely not have finished. This means that I would have to make time for it outside of school. I also could not just start making plays on the first day, as I needed to spend lots of time learning concepts and developing basic knowledge. I started doing this by watching interviews with coaches and taking notes on games I watched. Then I had to translate my newly acquired knowledge into my playbook. This was the most difficult part of the process for me. I gained so much information, but by the time I needed to actually start making my own plays, I was somewhat lost. Thankfully, there are older NFL playbooks available online that helped me understand the typical structure of a playbook. But from then on, I was on my own. I took it one step at a time, adding formations and then motions and eventually actual plays. Most of my first couple hundred plays had to be completely scrapped because I kept finding such big mistakes that needed to be reworked. For example, I went through 12 different protection systems before finally settling on one I liked. The only way I could learn was to make lots of mistakes. It was important to me that not only was the playbook finished, but was of high quality. Anyone who watches football can draw some arrows, but I needed to repeatedly improvise and expand my learning to keep my knowledge the best it can be. I worked on plays every class, watched film at night, and took notes on games I watched over the weekend. This consistent schedule eventually led to the project's completion, and after hundreds of hours of work, I learned some important pillars of success. This project required me to be tenacious throughout the process. This project was extremely tedious and often caused me to become frustrated. If a formation with 100 plays in it needed to be modified, I needed to individually edit all 100 of those plays to correctly match the formation. Those moments added up and it sometimes got discouraging. But there were lots of plays that needed to get done. I could not waste my time slacking just because I encountered a difficulty. There are so many moving parts in play, like protections, routes, progressions, etc., that if there was a small mistake, the whole play could fall apart. That's why I needed to have attention to detail. I also had to be consistent. There was a lot of work to do in a short amount of time, so I had to limit procrastination as much as possible. Every day, I would try to add something to the playbook or strengthen my football knowledge. This constant daily work towards my project ultimately led to its completion. This project didn't just teach me about football, it helped me realize something else important. If you asked me at the start of the school year what my dream job would be, I would have said to be a professional or collegiate football coach. But if you then asked me what job do I think I'm going to have, I would have said something different. Some sort of secondary option or a job need that I'm not nearly as passionate about. I had this idea that something like coaching at the highest level is something too far-fetched and unrealistic. It's okay to have a big goal, but succeeding would be too much of a lottery. So you're probably going to have to fall back onto your second option anyways. However, the sentiment that I used to have has changed. I used to view coaching at a high level as something reserved for special people who naturally understood the game at a deeper level. At the start of the year, when I selected this project, I viewed it as essentially impossible with the workload and information I needed to learn. But as I worked on it, I learned that what I saw as talent was just spending more time studying. For example, when I first watched film breakdowns, I was very intimidated by all the arrows and terms. When I first watched film myself, everything looked very chaotic. It was hard to tell what was actually important. But over time, I began to recognize patterns and learn how certain plays are designed to attack specific defenses. I also started refining my own ideas as well. Early on, my plays lacked purpose. Routes and blocks were kind of arbitrarily chosen just based on what I thought looked good. But as I kept working, I got better at thinking through each part of the play. Now each of my decisions contributed to an overall concept. That precision came from repetition and learning from mistakes. Now my learning did not just stay in this project, as it started to show up in other parts of my life as well. One of the biggest changes was how I approached challenges. For this project, whether it be homework or chores, if something felt too overwhelming, I would most likely just avoid it. However, after working through something as detailed as a football playbook, I realized that progress really just comes from effort. I've also started applying a new mindset to my schoolwork. When I don't understand something right away, instead of getting frustrated, I trust myself to improve through repetition. I've also seen improvement in other classes in my public speaking. I've always hated class presentations, finding myself stuttering a lot. However, completing the playbook has boosted my confidence, and I'm now certain my ability to speak in front of lots of people, not to mention how important that is for coaching. I want to end this by sharing a quote from Tom Brady's Hall of Fame induction ceremony speech. He said, "To be successful in anything, the truth is you don't have to be special. You just have to be what most people aren't, consistent, determined, and willing to work for it." I chose this quote because Tom Brady was a perfect example of someone who worked hard to get to the top. He was skinny, slow, and didn't really see the field until his senior year of college. He became the greatest football player of all time, not through talent, but just by outworking everybody else. So I don't see coaching as a gamble or something unachievable anymore. Understanding the game at a high level is something you can build. It is not a rare talent. This project showed me that I actually enjoy the kind of work coaching requires. I watched film for hours and paid attention to small details because I wanted to improve. There's still lots of steps I need to take, and nothing is guaranteed. I'd rather put in effort and try to go as far as I can and assume it's unrealistic and never try. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Bella Pisano, and I'm a junior who's taking life design for their first year. My question is, what makes a good student? So at the beginning of the year, I was completely overwhelmed. When walking into the classroom, we were expected to spit out many ideas for a life design project. In my mind, I had no idea what to do, and my focus was being occupied by other challenging classes surrounding my junior year. And honestly, in my mind, I was only taking this class to fulfill my STEM requirement. When an idea came around, I decided to shoot for an adoption event. Since the idea for my project hadn't fully formulated to its full potential until around November, I knew that the event would have to be put off to the side due to the cold weather. I thought I could easily do this in the spring, which was great because that meant it was possible until it wasn't. I was now left with a ton of class time to try and research or plan for an event that wasn't even set in stone yet. Minimal support from the shelters overwhelmed me, and I decided to shift the purpose of my project a little bit. I decided to take the original idea of an adoption event and turn it into something also beneficial for the shelters, a box drive and fundraiser. I had to consistently work in class, which competed with the temptation to work on other homework, in order to properly advertise, conversate with club advisors, build platforms for the fundraising. At this point, instead of being overwhelmed by my project, it felt more manageable and enjoyable. Along with the main goals of my project being achieved to my new standards, I began to find that the learning I experienced through the project stuck with me more than the project itself. I realized how throughout high school and even middle school, school was always about checking a box. Getting an assignment done was only so that you can get the grade you want while doing the least amount of work possible. I know that this isn't the morally correct way to look at it, but I also know that I'm not the only student that thinks this way. This is one of the many things teachers in all districts have engraved into students' head at a young age. Students only work to get by, not to actually learn something along the way. Frequently, I catch myself not wanting to go to school. The problem is that I feel that school isn't even about learning anymore, and the focus shifted to achieving an unrealistic and almost unattainable spotless GPA. The result of this insane amount of pressure turns students to struggle with competition, stress, and burnout. First off, the whole idea of checking off a box in school to get a good grade in return causes an immense amount of academic pressure on the student. Grades quickly overshadow the entire learning portion of school. A spotless GPA or perfect grade on a test doesn't necessarily deeply intellectually advance you as a student, especially if you're only memorizing the material. Grades create an immense competition within school that not many talk about. During my junior year, I struggled a lot with my mental headspace surrounding school, but honestly, this year allowed me to ultimately realize that my grades do not define me or my efforts. When grades or testing is brought up in a conversation with family or friends, I always think, this again? It makes me think about the real reason why these questions are asked. I relate these kind of questions similar to frequently spoken phrases in adult conversations, such as, what's your job? Usually, in my opinion, many people ask this question to immediately determine someone's annual salary. I think it's the same thing with grades or test scores. Do my grades define me or the effort I put into something? Well, I simply do not believe that a single test can determine what kind of student someone is. But that doesn't even matter. I realize that although it is important to be academically strong, it's more important, or to me at least, to be a well-rounded person in school and outside school. I started to realize that academic validation takes more time and doesn't just come from one score or grade. Especially in the beginning of my junior year, I used to strive to earn the best grades and study so frequently, But it didn't take me long to come to terms with the fact that studying all the time just didn't make me happy. I realized how important balance is in my life. Now, I believe academic balance with schoolwork, sports, relationships, hobbies, and extracurriculars is just as impactful as a number on a sheet. Now, I measure my worth on relationships made with teachers and other students, how I treat others, and how hard I work. Shifting back into my actual life design project, I think recognition was a big part of it. When I advertised my box drive on social media and through school-issued resources, I gained student and staff retention in return. Sending out emails to all the shelters made me realize how important it is to recognize and support them, and I know this because my family and friends' recognition of my efforts made me feel an insane amount of gratitude for their support, more than a score on a test ever could. I felt a sense of pride that wasn't simply washed away by a friend's better grade or a worse grade on an assignment after the fact. One night, after dinner, I began to talk to my parents about how important recognition and support is in the grand scheme of life. Growing up, for example, when a parent doesn't show up for their kid's parent-teacher conference, winter concert, or sports event, it crushes their confidence in their abilities and their overall support system. Showing up means the world to a kid, and something as simple as being there standing in the back of the room can change their outlook. Personally, I felt like my friends and family were always standing in the back of the room through not only the entirety of this project, but the entirety of my junior year. After seeing the many materials students helped me gather at NHS, I felt so incredibly rewarded and proud of myself for having the capability to organize, drive, and benefit others instead of myself. I found that this project made me more proud of myself than I could have ever been if I chose a self-improvement project, and allowed me so much more self-reflection than a summative test in school could have. Throughout the process, I noticed how much helping others allows me to grow and gives me my self-confidence in my abilities. In the future, I hope to involve myself more in the benefit of others rather than myself. I feel proud looking back on these pictures and telling my family and friends how instead of doing something for myself, like getting a good grade on a test, I'm doing something to help others. My biggest takeaway from this project and this class was how my outlook changed from believing that the grades I earn equates to the person I am. More importantly, I learned that the kind of person I am is what I do for others and being as well-rounded as a student as I can be. As I approach the tail end of my junior year of high school, the more and more I come to terms with the fact that if I give it my all in all areas of my life, not just school, it will get me further than any grade. I think every student needs to hear that numbers are not always their value. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Nate Dealing. This is my first year in Life Design Lab. Before school started, I was super excited to be an LDL. It was important to my dad, and I knew the benefits it would bring to me in my life. The year started, and I chose to make a project about a girls' sports field house because I felt connected to it. I grew up playing sports, and it was a special part of my life. I noticed that the boys had a huge locker room facility and the girls didn't. This made me want to change that for girls and coaches of the program. I loved the idea. I felt super involved. I was emailing people, interviewing people, and getting answers. Some of the interviews went really well. People liked the idea and wanted to pursue it. Some didn't go the way I imagined they would go. I don't think I properly communicated the importance of my idea correctly towards the athletic directors. For some reason, they kept asking a certain question that I knew the answer to, just didn't know how to respond. They kept asking me what we'd be solving if we had a field house for the girls. I knew the problem. It wasn't fair. The boys had a big field house and the girls had a tiny little locker room. Girls had to change in their cars, and the field house would completely fix that. For a while, I didn't go back. Mostly, I think it was because of how disappointed I was in their reaction. That year, there have been many disappointments that stopped me from doing things, and it affected my confidence. The fear of getting let down again was overwhelming, and it held me back. It stopped me from talking to them again, and that's a regret that I have. Then, after a while, I was stuck. I didn't know what to do. I was getting lazy and started doing nothing in class. It got to the point where I was getting nervous to get in class because I felt guilty. I cared, I really did. I just didn't do anything about it. I wanted things to change, and I didn't do anything to change them. Then, one day in the middle of the school year, I was in Spanish class. At my table, all my friends started talking about LBL. My one friend started talking about her project. She was talking about all the things she was doing for it. It was amazing. She was doing so much and making a lot of progress. I wanted to work hard like her. Just, I wasn't trying to get what I wanted. Later that night, I had a conversation with my parents about it. I told them about everything. The conversation was helpful. We talked about the stuff I should try doing to help get more work done for my project. There was a sudden change in my work. I sent numerous emails to Coach Ali Ferrara. I set up a meeting with her, got lots of good information. I talked briefly with Butch Flynn. I learned a lot about Title IX. I did research on modular locker rooms and checked prices on how much they would cost. It felt good to bring more ideas to my project. I was working for what I wanted. This started happening in things outside my project as well, like my math class. Math isn't my strongest suit at all. There was a decline in my grade. I wanted it to be higher so bad, but I wasn't doing anything about it. Kind of like I wasn't doing anything about my project. It was upsetting, so I changed my attitude. I started going to math for lunch to get more help. I started asking more questions and getting more practice in and out of class. And I got a result. My grades started to go up in class. I worked hard for what I wanted. It happened in lacrosse too. I was struggling in the winter with practicing lacrosse in my own time. I would give the excuse of, I'm too busy or I can't today. The truth was, I just wasn't putting in the work. I love lacrosse and I wanted to be a good team for the spring. I just didn't do anything about it. And that wasn't good. I told myself time to start striving for my goal if I wanted to really be on varsity lacrosse. So I started working. I would go to extra practicing clinics. I would be in the bubble for 2 to 3 hours, shooting, dodging, running, and more. I did this for a good amount of time. Then tryouts came up and I had the confidence and skills to play at a high level. I made my goal. I made varsity lacrosse. I worked hard for what I wanted and I didn't just sit there and hope it would happen. I did this exactly for my math grade and for my project. I went to LDL events many years before high school. I saw the projects displayed, but I didn't really know what was behind all the scenes of feedback nights and critique nights. I didn't put much thought into how much work they actually did, and only focused on the project itself. Things came easy to me and I didn't have to work too hard. Then, eventually things started to become harder. I have a bit of memory from middle school telling my mom that I simply just didn't want to study for a test or prepare for something. I just expected to get a good grade or get something good done without working for it. As Taylor once said, I never dreamt of success, I worked for it. I feel this quote resonates with experiences I've had this year. It shows that I could bring anyone to greatness. This mentality and way of working got me to reach my goals and the things I wanted. This year, I learned that you can't just sit there and hope to get your goal achieved. You have to put in the work. When putting in the work, you will get there and get more progress done. I perceived my gap of no work as a bad thing. But now that I think about it, I'm grateful it happened. It showed me where hard work can get you, and I'm not stopping. I'm going to use this mentality and tactic in life. It benefited me with school, sports, it will benefit life problems, jobs, college, and literally so much more. I put in the work on multiple occasions, and I got where I wanted to be. So I'm done wishing, and now I'm working. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Anna Kizzy, and I'm a first-year student in the Life Design program. Ever since I was little, I have loved to read. As a kid, books were my safe space. When I read, I was able to escape my own thoughts and enter another world. The magic and absolute calm I felt in a bookstore was unmatched elsewhere. But there is no bookstore here in Morristown. No place for me to find that comfort. I was frustrated. Why did ever the place I visited have a bookstore, but not the place I lived? So I started dreaming. After school, I would come home and doodle my dream bookstore. Shelves of my favorite chapter books, a cafe with pastries, a corner with a big couch where I could read for hours. As I grew older, my dreams of the bookstore went to the back of my mind as I entered more challenging grades and took on more responsibilities. But that little seed of vision stayed with me until the beginning of this year when I had to pick a life design project. Even before the school year started, I think I knew that what I wanted to do was bring a bookstore to Morristown. I explored other ideas, like improving my neighborhood park or renovating the locker rooms, but nothing interested me as much as the bookstore, and I decided the best way to start that project was to visit Bookfest that September. Mr. Daly gave me the goal to interview 100 people about their thoughts about the bookstore. By the end of the 2 hours I was there, I'd only interviewed about 7. I remember my hands shaking at the thought of going up to a stranger. The idea of starting conversation felt paralyzing. I've never liked putting myself out there to others, held back from anxiety about being judged or rejected. Despite my fears, the few conversations I had at Bookfest helped kickstart my project. I had a few key conversations with local leaders like Jen Carlson of Sparta Books, Nicole and Ellen, founders of Annie Books, which is another organization trying to bring books to Morristown through community events, and Caroline Godfrey of the MEF. These provided the resources and connections I needed to help kickstart my project. Now that I had a basic foundation for a project, I entered the second phase, interviews and research.
During this time, I interviewed many people like Jennifer Wang from the Morristown Partnership, created Google Forms to survey MHS students, and asked businesses in town how they attracted customers. These ventures gave me interesting information, but I still didn't know where I wanted to go with my project yet. I struggled to find the answer to the question, how do I convert all this research into a successful project? It wasn't until December, when I visited the Gingerbread Bookstore, that I found some clarity. The Gingerbread Bookstore movement is a used bookstore with well-curated, high-quality books. The bookstore accepts donations in exchange for gingerbread cookies, and is very successful despite only being open on weekends. I was fascinated by this model. It allowed me to open my perspective. Rather than thinking there was only one way to open this bookstore, an all-new or chain bookstore, I started exploring other models and opening my eyes to all the different possibilities. With a fresh perspective and open mind, it was finally time to put a plan in motion. After critique night, I developed 3 different ideas for potential business models. The first was a pop-up shop located in a coffee shop in town where customers could pick up a book while they sip their drink. Its purpose was to gain interest and support from the citizens, but it quickly flopped after I received 0 responses from local cafes. The next was a youth bookstore, supplied through donations from the community. This was a cost-friendly and more sustainable option that I had seen to be very successful in other towns. Although this was slightly more attainable than a new bookstore, it still wouldn't be possible with the little resources I had. Finally, a bookstore run with the school district. I got this idea through Mr. Daly's mom, who used to help at a bookstore with this model called The Next Chapter in West Hartford, Connecticut. In this model, the bookstore would be funded by the school district as our place for our school's Colonial Life program to gain real-life job experience at. Colonial Life is a program at MHS where special needs students spend a few years before graduating, gaining skills and experience needed for the real world. I tried to work out this idea for a few months by meeting with Mr. Manning and the other directors of the program, and emailing people at The Next Chapter. However, I wasn't getting anywhere as the school wasn't interested in supporting this. When it came time for exhibition night, I realized I didn't have a finished product I could show the public. I just had unfinished ideas, threads, and inspiration. I began to grow frustrated. I worked so hard, but I had nothing to show for it. But I noticed something a few weeks ago that had me thinking. Maybe this project was more successful than I thought. I had an English presentation last block on that day. All day I waited for that familiar sense of anxiety and dread to get hidden, for my hands to shake and my heart to speed up, but it never came. Even right before I went up to present, I felt a calm that I had never experienced before. In the following weeks, I was much less scared to speak in front of others. During my first meeting with Mr. Manning, I was shaking and tripping over my words. Now, I had one a few weeks ago, and although I was nervous, I felt confident that it would work out. Looking back on my nerves during the book festival, the difference in my confidence after only 6 months is striking to me. After all, in September, I would have never agreed to come up on the stage and speak to all of you. I've also noticed that I worry less about what others think. Throughout my entire education, I've made almost every decision based on what would make me go unnoticed. I never wanted to stand out from the crowd, and I constantly worried that people were judging my actions. During this project, I was forced to go in front of others and display everything I had done. It felt extremely vulnerable for me to talk about this passion I've had since I was little. But as I continued doing it, I didn't care so much about what others thought. I started to understand that as long as I'm passionate about this, that's all that matters. Of course, I value feedback from others, but I'm proud of myself for picking the project that I wanted this year instead of the one that I thought others would approve of. And lately, I've been doing more of what I love without fear of judgment. This indifference is freeing and has lifted a tremendous weight off my shoulders. And finally, I've learned the importance of leaning on others. In the beginning of the year, I was under the impression that I would do this project by myself with maybe a little bit of guidance. I quickly had to learn that wouldn't be possible. Without my meetings with Mr. Daly, feedback from all the elements, advice from friends, interviews with professionals, and support from like-minded people, I would have never gotten to the place I am now. I recently had a meeting with other people interested in the bookstore, including Andrew Leckford from the Artist Baker, the owner of Asbury Books Cooperative, the founders of Anthem Books, as well as so many others with the same passion as me. With this new group of people and fresh ideas, I feel encouraged to continue with my project now and comforted by the idea that I'm not alone. If I ever feel discouraged, I know I will have people who will guide me back on track. Sure, I value these learnings and what they contributed to my self-growth. What's really special to me about these findings is that nobody taught them to me. I didn't learn confidence or the importance of collaboration by taking notes or memorizing facts, which is how I learned in other classes. and learn these things on my own by experiencing challenges, overcoming struggles, and working out problems by myself. And as I enter my next 3 years of high school and eventually college and a job, I'll be able to use these skills and traits to succeed. I may not have created the bookstore I dreamed of yet, but I have the confidence to keep working until that happens. I'm no longer the girl who sat in her room daydreaming about a bookstore. I'm the person who's actually making it happen. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Quinley Flynn. I'm a freshman, and this is my first year of Life Design Lab. Gymnastics has always been a big part of my life. I've been dedicated ever since I was young. I started doing rec classes when I was 6, and I loved it. At the age of 8, I made a commitment that I had no idea would take me this far. I began competing. I started out in level 3, and I'm now in level 8. Since then, gymnastics hasn't just been a hobby, it's been my identity. This sport didn't just give me physical strength, it gave me a sense of purpose. My average day consists of waking up, going to school sports like field hockey and softball, and then straight to gymnastics. Because of this, I am almost never home. When I leave my house at 7 in the morning to go to school, I don't come back till 9:45 at night. But I wouldn't want it any other way. Balance all of this, as well as honors workload and personal life, is extremely hard. Although gymnastics makes my life both very tiring, mentally and physically, I have so much love for it. I often wonder who I would be if I hadn't stepped into the gym for the first time. The discipline I learned there was supposed to be my superpower, but as I learned this year, even the most disciplined athletes can lose their way. In the beginning of the school year, I didn't know how different this class was going to be from the rest. In every class, I'm doing the best I can to do everything perfectly, follow rubrics, and get 100s. Gymnastics has always taught me to do that too. You're always being judged and chasing a perfect 10-0 score. But not life design. Life design gives me way more freedom, and it helped me pick a project I would actually be interested in and not just regular schoolwork. When it came time to choose a project for this year, I knew I couldn't just pick a random topic. I needed something that mirrored my life, something that would take the whole school year but also keep me engaged and involved. I decided to take on the challenge of bringing on a gymnastics team to MHS. I wanted to take the discipline I've practiced for almost a year and apply it to a real-world role. I thought that because I love the sport, the project would be easy. I thought my passion would be enough to carry me to the finish line. I didn't realize I was about to face a wall that no amount of physical training can prepare me for. For the first 3 months, I was highly engaged. My engagement level was participating and investing, I was working hard each and every class, and even occasionally at home. I was so excited to make this project a reality. Every day, I would do plenty of research, I was sending numerous emails, and I was even having meetings about it. I was on a roll. But eventually, I hit a wall. In gymnastics, it's called a mental block. When your brain suddenly freezes, you'll let your body do a skill you've done 1,000 times. In this project, the mental block was finding something to work on and not being able to progress. The first few days into this block, I was constantly trying to find something to work on, some sort of workaround, something that would give me just a little bit of progress in my project, but I had nothing. Those few days turned into a few weeks. My engagement plummeted. I was never working in class, and I barely cared if my project would turn out or not. I fell into a bad habit of putting off work because the pressure wasn't as high as a typical class. I had to face the hard truth about myself. It's easy for me to slip away. Once I hit a wall, my effort goes down the drain. Something I initially loved had become something I dreaded. I learned that I'm also like this in gymnastics. On the beam, when I have a scary fall, it's so hard to get back up and do it again. Flipping on a 4-inch piece of wood has been the hardest part about my life in gymnastics. Once I have one fall, I'm terrified to do that skill again, and I usually never do. At my first competition of my 2024 season, I was warming up my back handspring step out. I didn't jump enough, I missed both hands, and I landed sideways on the beam. After that, I never did it again. For the 2025 and now 2026 season, I'm doing a completely different skill. Although it's not what I want to do, it's all I can physically and mentally do. Soon, my project felt like being to me. I would never put in even an ounce of work, just like how I did with my skills. I was in a deep pit of my own making. Life design started to turn into the last class I wanted to be in. Not just because I had nothing to do, but because I started to feel guilty. Eventually, I was slowly able to get back. I found little things each and every class to work on. This got me out of the avoiding category and back into participating, but still occasionally withdrawing. Finding work to do was hard, but that wasn't an excuse. Climbing out of that pit wasn't a sudden leap, it was a slow crawl. I had to ask myself, what am I doing? Do I want to be successful, or do I want to give up when things get boring? I started finding small things to work on every single day. I forced myself to be consistent even when I didn't feel like it. I knew I had to get better because I wanted to be successful in this class. This whole project made me learn that true discipline isn't working hard when you're excited. It's working out when the news has worn off and you're faced with a wall. I learned that I had the habit of inconsistency, but I also learned that I had the power to break it. By the end of the year, my relationship with the project changed. I wasn't just working for a grade, I was working to prove myself that I could stay the course. My relationship with the gymnastics has also changed. Even though I still fall, get hurt, and cry in the back of my practice, I always get back up. I used to tell myself, I'm never doing that skill again, after having a scary fall, but this project helped me change my mentality about that. This is a Japanese proverb meaning fall down 7 times, stand up 8, symbolizing unwavering resilience and perseverance. It teaches that failure is inevitable, but success comes from consistently rising again. This saying applies to both my gymnastics life and my journey with my project. I started this project wanting to build a gymnastics team, but I ended up rebuilding my own work ethic. I am more consistent now, and I understand that while it's easy to step away, it is also possible to find your way back. Gymnastics taught me how to fall, but this project taught me how to stay standing. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Christian Smith, and I'm a senior in the Light Design Lab. At the start of the year, I was not originally enrolled in Light Design. At first, I took psychology honors, but after sitting through a few classes, I decided that it wasn't for me. After going to my guidance counselor and asking what I could replace it with, I was given a handful of options, one of them being Light Design. At first, I didn't know much about it, but after talking to the teachers and hearing more about the curriculum, I was interested. The idea that we got the entire school year to work on one project that had a purpose to us stood out to me. It felt different from any other class I had taken before. However, on day 1 of class, I realized it was going to be much different than I thought it would be. Going into it, I assumed it would be more like my other classes, where I showed up, followed instructions, completed assignments, and earned a good grade. Instead, I realized I couldn't rely on anyone else to guide me through the process. I had to hold myself accountable for how the year went, and that responsibility was entirely on me. That realization made the class feel both exciting and overwhelming. For the first time, I wasn't being guided step by step or being told exactly what to do from a teacher. I had that freedom, but that freedom came with pressure. It forced me to take a step back and really think about what I wanted to do and why it mattered. In the beginning, I struggled at first with deciding on the project. I knew it couldn't just be something random or easy. It had to be meaningful, something that I actually cared about and could stay committed to for an entire year. When it came time to pick my project, I needed something I was passionate about, something that was deeply rooted in me and not only challenged me, but also served a real purpose. After thinking about it, I kept coming back to the one moment that changed my life. In April 2020, I lost my father to his battle against mental health. At first, I didn't know if I wanted to center my project around something that personal. It felt uncomfortable, and a part of me wanted to avoid it. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized this project could be more than just an assignment. It could be something meaningful not only for me, but the ones around me too. That's when I came up with the idea to design hoodies that would spread awareness for mental health, using my dad's story as motivation behind it. I designed hoodies with the saying, "Thank you for being here," a simple but powerful message meant to remind people that they matter and that their presence is important. Even though it sounds like a small idea, the process of bringing it to life is not easy. I had to think about multiple factors from price point to design to colors and fabrics. I went through multiple ideas that were sent in the mail, each one slightly different, and had to decide which one I felt truly captured the message I wanted to send. Eventually, I settled on a final design I felt proud of. I reached out to friends and family, shared my idea, and was able to sell a project that meant something to me on a deeper level. As I worked on designing the hoodie, I started to realize how much intention goes into something that seems so simple. It definitely wasn't a perfect progress. I had weeks where I totally hit a wall, just feeling that creative burnout where nothing looked right. Then I had to deal with the actual stress of logistics, like handling back orders and trying to get everything to line up. But pushing through that made me realize it wasn't just about making something that looked good. It had to feel right. I had to think carefully about the message I was putting out how people would interpret it, and whether it truly reflected what I was trying to say. Throughout the year, I had multiple opportunities to present my work, including sharing my project proposal with the class, setting up a table at feedback night, and showcasing my progress at exhibition night. I initially interpreted this project as being centered entirely around the sweatshirts, but over time, I realized I was wrong. The sweatshirts were just the surface of something much deeper. The project was a way for me to express something I had never known how to put into words before. Since my father's passing, I had always struggled with talking about it. When someone who wasn't aware of my situation would mention their dad or ask about mine, I'd avoid the conversation, give a short, vague answer, or even lie. I wanted to end the conversation and avoid the awkwardness I was so afraid of. Even this year, it got to a point in class where I regretted the project I picked, where I would stress the weeks leading up to our exhibition nights and feedback nights. I questioned whether I had made the right decision by choosing something so personal. But when everything was said and done, and I had time to reflect over this past year in life design, I started to notice real changes within myself. Now when someone unknowingly mentions my dad, I don't try to shut down or escape the conversation. My face doesn't go red, and I don't feel the same pressure to avoid the topic. Instead, I could talk about him in a way that feels honest and natural. I used to think that moving on meant I had to leave my dad's story behind to get a fresh start, but this class taught me the opposite. I don't need to wipe everything clean to have a future. I just need to be brave enough to own my own story. As a senior with college coming up next year, I know I'm going to be in a completely new environment where no one knows anything about me. People will ask about my family, my background, and who I am. For the first time, I feel prepared for those conversations. Instead of avoiding them, I can face them honestly and without fear. Looking back, life design wasn't just about creating a project or completing a project or a grade. It was about growth, stepping into discomfort, and learning how to face something real. For years, my father's passing was a secret I felt the need to protect. Life design turned that secret into a bridge. When I head to college next year, I'm not just prepared to answer questions about my family. I'm prepared to be someone who can sit with someone else in their grief. I've learned that by being honest about my struggle, I gave others permission to be honest about theirs. What I gained from this class was far beyond the classroom and anything I could have expected. Something I know I'll carry with me long after high school. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Genevieve Bass, and I am a Year 1 student in life design. I grew up with my own little playground in my backyard. I'd always run outside to go down the slide or beg my parents to push me on the swing. It was a part of every chapter of my life. Even as I got older, my friends and I would make music videos to Taylor Swift in my backyard. It was endless fun, summer or snow. And we would go to other parks too. The one right up the street from my house, and the one with the big hill that would slide down on cardboard boxes, and the iconic Castle Park where so many family memories were made. But once the summer of 2024 came to a close, that chapter kind of did too. The swing set had been taken over by carpenter bees and started to rot. We had to take it down. Now, I'm a freshman in high school, and there really isn't time for playgrounds like there used to be. And now kids seem to have better things to do. This past summer, my friends and I volunteered at Homeless Solutions and participated in their volunteer babysitting program. The whole time, we were outside in their fenced-in yard. We'd play games like Among Us or hide and seek. Most days were chaotic, but it was always fun. There was a colorful climbing thing with an attached slide, but it was small. Many of the kids were worried about the dagger long legs that were all over it and stayed away. Some didn't mind though, and instead turned it into their own restaurants. In class, when the topic of life design projects came along, I knew what I wanted to do. These kids deserve to have the same joy and memories I had with my swing set. Why couldn't I get them one of their own? So I started this class on a mission to make this happen. I started to reach out to Homeless Solutions. I sent out my first email and got a response. I felt like I was flying. I kept going and scheduled a meeting. I'd never done anything like this before. I was never really the type of person to reach out to people I didn't know well. And we had our meeting, and it was definitely not what I thought it was going to be. I kept going though, and reached out to Sheila Flynn about Morgan Stanley's playground project that they did in 2018, and found a company called Kaboom. Kaboom is a nonprofit company that works to end place-based inequality. Scrolling through Google, I saw giant playgrounds and I never thought I could be behind. To even have a chance, I need to find the money. And so I began to connect with large corporations in town and built a connection with Santa Fe Homestown. Everything was perfect. Too perfect. Then the realization hit that it wasn't going to happen with homeless solutions. So I was left with pages of work, but no project to show for it. I thought I had to keep going. I had so much information and work, and so I tried to bury it in the fact that it was school, and I had to do it. The connection I felt knowing those kids wouldn't be there anymore. So I forced myself to try and get any leads I could and find a location. It didn't matter anymore. I just had to get it done. Class time turned into my daily Wordle block or unblock games. I told myself it would all be okay and work itself out. And for the most part, it did. But I lost interest in my project without the constant push from someone else. I worked and worked, reached out to location after location, sometimes receiving a response, other times nothing. I had people telling me to quit, that I had it all wrong and to try something different. But I felt too far along. I tried to reach out to Boom in any way possible. They felt like the only reliable people for this. And finally, after many months, I got in contact with one of their employees. I was on the phone with them within the next week talking about places in town while I called and emailed with the town council. My emails started to get ignored no matter who I talked to. And I kept trying to push and push for more information, funding, a location, while constantly being told that it wasn't going to work and would never happen. And suddenly, it all stopped. Now I'm here with no playground to show for it. And I feel guilty, like someone out there was counting on me. But along this way, this project turned into exactly that, a project. I lost the spark that this class was all about, the passion that was needed to succeed. I got to a point where I just stopped, because even though I was going to have the perfect story for my college essay, or a place with my name on the front, I knew that I couldn't force these people I was trying to work with to feel the same way. Throughout the whole thing, though, I saw myself change. Now, I'm not as afraid when voicing my opinions to adults. My emails changed drastically. I finally figured out towards the end that I could separate things into paragraphs. I began to see myself jumping at any random opportunity. I started filling out applications for things I was interested in, even if I didn't get accepted. I applied for jobs and did the work to get there. I put myself out there, and it might not have worked out every time, but now I know for the future. I've started little challenges for myself. I reached out to Freddie Martinez and the FRVD Run Club in town and tried to connect them with the school. I began to try getting back into my old hobbies, like playing guitar, crocheting, and I've been baking and running more too. Though I might have failed, it's not the type of failure I thought it would be. Maybe I didn't fail because I didn't try, but instead because there were so many things I didn't think of. I would have never thought about the legal side of any of this. And I had people along the way guiding me and trying to help me understand it. While trying to work with others, I think the unsure feeling and doubt came across to them too, and they just dropped back. But now I know you can't do that. You have to come at it head on and try. But you also need to know when to stop. It means that everything happens for a reason, and trying is the point. This was all never about the project, just the progress I made within myself. Throughout this, I met so many amazing people with such strong passion, and it was so inspiring to watch. The people who are willing to try so hard for others are the people I've been surrounded by my entire life. And now I only realized it. My parents have always been there for me throughout everything and worked so hard for it all. Before this project, I wouldn't have known that this swing set that started it all came from not only my parents, but the rest of my family too. Maybe it took failing to realize it, but it was less about the project and more about the things that matter, like family, friends, and possible playgrounds that give us the heart to try. Thank you.
Hello everyone. My name is Ainsley Avers, and I am a senior in my final year of the Life Design Lab. In a few
months, I will be attending DePaul University as a film major, and I'm really excited. But before I can move on to this next chapter, I want to reflect on my years of high school and what they have taught me to lead me here. I feel authentic, confident, and secure in my decisions and my path forward, and I can credit a lot of that to this class. Freshman year, I took life design lab, and I was intimidated by a lot of things. By the seniors in the class, by the ambitious project ideas, and by the video equipment I didn't yet know how to use. I was in a class with a bunch of people who seemed way more experienced and qualified than I was. I decided on a project where I would make a documentary about an experiment I wanted to run. It sounds more impressive than it actually ended up being. I delivered a project of learning about how I learned to stop being afraid of the word no and promptly tried my best to forget about my project. I tried to fake my confidence, and that had gotten me half of the way there, but I refused to truly step out of my comfort zone in all aspects. I hadn't completely met my original goal, and what I did create is, in my opinion, a bit of a mess. Because I was in total control of my project, it allowed me to churn out whatever I wanted, so I compromised with myself and made something that was nothing like I had originally intended. I'm still proud of it though, not proud enough to show it off, but proud that I attempted something challenging and got my foot in the door. My sophomore year was interesting. Instead of taking Life Design Lab again, I decided to go on a different track. I took AP Seminar and Replacement for LDL2, and looking back, I regret it. I got an A, but I didn't take away anything that felt actually meaningful from the class. However, that year I got more involved in our school's Colonial Corner Club, which allowed me to further my interest in videography. Junior year was a time of deep growth and realization. It was time to truly get serious about my path in film. I realized that if I actually wanted to do it, I had to go for it. I couldn't just think about doing, I actually had to do. A lesson that had stuck with me from my time in LDL freshman year. However, instead of taking Life Design Lab again, I kept on the AP track and took AP Research. I had a similar experience to that of an AP seminar. It didn't leave me feeling fulfilled, and I didn't feel like I was gaining much. So, in addition to that class, I took film class in Montclair on the weekends. I was surrounded by a bunch of other aspiring filmmakers building art portfolios, and yet again I felt entirely out of my depth. I had somehow secured myself into being the director of our group without ever having taken a class at Montclair before. Their equipment, their strategies were all new to me. Yet again, I was in a class with a bunch of people who seemed more experienced and more qualified than I was. I felt unsure of how to command a room in which I felt inexperienced. So what was I supposed to do? I couldn't just back out. I didn't want to back out. I wanted to be the director, so I became the director. I employed my tried and true strategy of fake it till you make it. And the process of making that film was terrifying because you don't really know how it's going to turn out until the end. There were other people counting on me this time, and I couldn't give up and modify this project halfway through. I knew I wanted this to be my career path, but until that moment, I didn't know if I was any good because I had never let myself get this far. I was scared that my fake confidence was an illusion that would shatter, leaving me heartbroken. At the end of the class, they premiered the films we had created in a local movie theater. It was surreal sitting back and watching my film and seeing not only a final product, but a product that I was really proud of. In that moment, my fake confidence started slipping away, only to be replaced by my authentic pride. I also made a film for my broadcasting degree class. I wrote the script as a fictionalized version of something that I had experienced. While making that film, I processed my emotions and my pain through my art, and the end result was so moving that some of my friends and family cried when they watched it. In those moments, I knew that the work was worth it. I also got an award, which I'm very proud of, but what meant most was realizing how much I had grown in pursuit of my passion. Freshman year, I had refused to fully step out of my comfort zone, but for this film, I had used unfamiliar equipment and techniques because I was passionate about making a final product that was reflective of the work I had put into it. So that brings us to senior year. I was finally back in Life Design Lab, except now I had been through high school, disillusioned with many of the basic principles of classic schoolwork, and ready to have time to work on my passion. I've made multiple projects that I've uploaded to my new YouTube channel, and I've gotten time to work on my film. The film I'm making this year is different to what I've done in the past. I loved the feeling of working with other film students and wanted to recreate that the best I could using my LDL course. In an effort to be more collaborative, I co-wrote this film with my friend Tessa, who is also my lead actress. I've also recruited various people to help me out behind the scenes and faced a lot of obstacles while creating this film, such as figuring out costumes, filming locations, and coordinating around schedules. But instead of dulling down my ideas or shying away from my ambitions, I've adapted. I feel ready to try my best at anything that's thrown my way. A bunch of small moments throughout the years have come together and forced me to prove myself to myself. Just like when I make a film, I don't know how everything in my life will turn out, but I'm excited to watch it all unfold. Most classes ask you to be a student. This class asks you to be yourself. This class asks the question, what are you going to do with your time when it is finally truly yours? What can you do to pursue your purpose? It's a hard question for a 14-year-old, and at the time I didn't have an answer. People talk about purpose like it's something you're born with, but I don't think that's true. I think purpose is something that develops along with you as you find out who you are. In this class, we sit, we reflect, and we create in order to figure that out. I am an artist, a filmmaker, and I'm no longer intimidated. I'm confident, and I'm excited for my next chapter. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kirby Kiani. I'm a freshman and year 1 student in the Light Design Lab, and this is my Light Design program presentation of learning.
Entering this class, I know I had to complete a year-long project. However, I didn't have a preset project or a clear roadmap, which was a huge shift for me today. Today, I want to walk you through how I navigated that uncertainty, I found a project I was passionate about, and more importantly, how I learned to design a structure for myself when one wasn't provided. My year is similar to a road path journey. Much like a path through a garden, there were moments of growth and blooms in my learning, no matter where the path led me. I've always been what I call a rubric student. In most of my classes, the path to an A is clear. Follow the instructions, complete the assignment, and turn it in. Grades and performance truly matter to me, and I've always relied on order to feel successful. However, real-world projects don't come with rubrics. When I entered the Life Design Lab, I thought I was ready to build something big, but I didn't realize that without a teacher-given checklist, I was about to face one of my most difficult challenges. When Mr. Daly first introduced the concept of a year-long project, I knew I wanted to focus on sports and how they affected my daily life. I identified a significant problem, a major decrease in the number of youth coaches in the Morristown Recreation Program. I knew instantly that I wanted to give back to the community that prepared me for my own athletic career as I transitioned into high school. Morristown is known for its strong sports culture and successful alumni coaches, like head girls lacrosse coach Ali Ferrara and head football coach Casey Flynn. These alumni are perfect examples of the types of mentors we need at the recreation level. People with local roots and deep experiences who can help athletes starting where it truly matters most. As I researched this, I found that this is actually a national issue. According to the National Alliance for Youth Sports, they found that 70% of youth athletes quit organized sports by age 13. Furthermore, less than 30% of coaches are properly trained in safety, concussion management, and positive coaching techniques. Yet, 83% of parents wish their children had access to better trained coaches. These statistics highlight the urgency and importance of finding qualified coaches for our local programs. This was my light bulb moment. I knew I was passionate about sports and how they affected my daily life, so I decided on focusing on helping the Morristown Youth Recreation Organizations. My goal was simple: find a way to recruit and help train more coaches so that kids in the community could have the same positive experiences I had. I was excited and instantly started thinking ways to get started. In September, I set a goal to email every recreation program in town. I expected a flood of replies, but instead, I got silence. Out of all my outreach, I only got 2 programs. Girls lacrosse and rugby even responded. As a freshman balancing school field hockey, club sports, and a heavy honors workload, this felt like a massive blow. I felt stressed and unsure about my project's direction and where I was going. I realized that if this class didn't give me a rubric, I had to build a structure for myself to keep myself organized for the project. I moved my messy thoughts from a Google Doc into a physical notebook. This notebook became my lifeline. Every class period, I would open it and write down whatever was on my mind, whether it was a phone call I needed to make or an email to a sport professional. I started making small, actionable to-do lists. Even though some days I wanted to rip out what I call wasted work, physically writing down and helped me organize my thoughts tremendously. Writing it down made me feel I had to check it off, rather than an online Google Doc checklist where I wouldn't be as effective and motivating to check it off. This notebook turned my procrastination into a plan and helped me manage my own time and mindset. After countless phone calls and emails, I created a recreation flyer to attract volunteers. Stepping out of my comfort zone was a challenge as a student who strives for perfection. I had to learn to tackle obstacles like dead-end emails and time management. I realized that being a top student meant more than just following the rules, but it meant showing resilience. Once I had my own structure, the work took off. I stopped waiting for the recreation board and started looking for where the coaches actually work, local gyms. I reached out to the professionals and designed a flyer to be displayed at 8 locations in town. I already had the flyer published on the MHS Instagram page as well. I realized that people committed to fitness were the perfect group to volunteer as youth coaches. Then Mr. Daly pushed me even further out of my comfort zone by suggesting I write an article for the Moorstone Grade. Putting my ideas out for public critique was terrifying for someone who hates making mistakes. I wrote about the rising demand for qualified coaches and how former athletes in their 20s and 30s were an untapped resource. I also said how connecting willing and qualified adults to these programs in need can help with participation and player development. This article allowed me to reach a community-wide audience that a simple email could have never touched. In addition, my notebook didn't just stay in the Life Design Lab. I started using it to organize my thoughts for every single class, from personal finance to world history. I even used it to study my Africa's capitals. The system gave me the confidence to manage my own workload and ensure I didn't get discouraged on it. Less productive days. I even used these organization habits to track the volunteers filling out my recruitment form. The Life Design Lab ultimately gave me the space to build my own learning environment. This wasn't a standard 25-slide ELA presentation. It was a project driven by my own initiative. While I started the year unsure how to develop a year-long project, my skills grew tremendously throughout the independent work and the day-to-day conferences I had with Mr. Daly. Back in 8th grade, Mr. Daly visited my class and asked us to draw a vase. Then he told us to draw a way to appreciate flowers. Our designs changed instantly, proving that life design isn't a typical class. It's a place for flowers to bloom in their very own way. Mr. Daly gave me an example and it stuck with me. The Life Design Lab is like a garden. He is the gardener who creates a space, but the plant must grow by itself, using the sunlight and water around it. In this setting, the teacher provides the environment and guidelines, but the real growth comes from the work you do for yourself. I feel I finally reached the level of independence I wasn't capable at the start of the year. I learned that I don't need a rubric to make an impact. I just need a notebook, a plan, and the courage to keep me going. I've gained confidence in professional communication, time management, and most importantly, pushing through the anxiety of not being perfect, as well as making my own structure throughout this journey. This experience has been completely different from any other class, moving from a severe stress to a sense of pride and ease. If you're willing to help with the coaching shortage, you can access my sign-up form in the Moorstone Grade article. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Tessa, and I'm a senior in the Life Design Lab. When I was younger, all I wanted was to be immersed in stories. I remember reading constantly, in my room, the car, in restaurants, even late at night when I should have been sleeping. I sat there in the dark, devouring entire books in one sitting. It wasn't long before I started trying to write stories of my own. The first I can remember was a detective story almost completely plagiarized from a book I had been reading at the time, scribbled out over the course of a few long car rides. That's what I can recall most from my childhood. I obviously spent most of my time at school, but I was never really conscious of it. School, extracurriculars, even sometimes my relationships felt secondary. I always preferred to retreat into the world of my mind. But as I got older, things started to get more complicated, and I couldn't live blissfully in my daydreams anymore. I remember 5th grade was the year it really hit me. My math class that year was very difficult and gave me almost constant anxiety. It all culminated when I took a quiz and got a 40%, which made me panic so much that I had to go home sick. I had always done well in school, but now I realized it wasn't always going to be like this. I would have to work very hard to keep excelling, to keep earning good grades, or else I would feel crushing anxiety and disappointment. So I kept working at it, motivated mainly by fear, never really feeling proud of my assignments or tests. Whenever someone praised me, I would sort of go numb. It didn't feel like me. What felt like me was wandering around with friends and reading in my backyard. Those activities still make me feel most like myself. I really haven't changed that much. When I entered high school, I was excited by the new environment, people, and possibilities. I was also very curious about the new life design class I had signed up for, then known as the Humanities Academy. That freshman year class was so much fun. I met some of my closest friends there and felt for the first time like I encountered teachers and students who really cared about their learning and finding purpose. But that year also gave me a lot to think about. My project was writing a novel, something I should have enjoyed. But when I applied my self-distancing schoolwork ethic to it, I hated the experience. I finished the first draft, but felt no reason to continue from there. I wasn't proud of it. This realization kind of put me in a personal crisis, but also taught me that I should try to find meaning in my school experience. That if I worked without thinking and reflecting, I would end up feeling unsatisfied and regretful. In my sophomore year, I didn't take the life design class and instead took AD seminar, which was then part of the program. Sophomore year was rough. I struggled with classes that were way more advanced than anything I had taken in freshman year, and extracurricular activities that were losing the joy they once brought me. Much like middle school, I felt constantly anxious, just trying to get through my days so I could go home and watch movies in bed. I felt like a huge hypocrite, somebody who had promised that they would try to find meaning in school, but ended up abandoning it all. But how can you find meaning when all your energy is put into difficult classes, homework, outside activities, and somehow trying to leave a little time left over for rest? I decided that I could never do something like that again. In my junior year, I took a much more balanced course load that would work best for me personally, and then buried myself into my work. And I did phenomenally. I advanced in both my classes and activities, drawing up a mildly impressive list of accomplishments. But again, I wasn't proud about what I had accomplished because it didn't feel meaningful. That year, the books I read, the movies I watched, and the interactions I had with friends taught me the most, not school. My life design project, leading a creative writing enrichment program at a local elementary school, was also successful and did teach me a lot about what I wanted for my future. But if I'm being honest, it didn't resonate with me as much as I hoped that it would. My experience in those 3 years of school can be summed up as trying to make school meaningful for myself, struggling to do so, giving up, and then excelling at school more than I ever have. Distancing myself worked. In order to succeed, I just had to go on autopilot, doing everything I needed so I could go get back to my hobbies. It taught me that school isn't really built as a place to find meaning or purpose, despite the graduate profile on the MHS website saying that students will graduate from Morristown High School with a deep sense of self-worth and purpose, confidently poised to shape their own futures. I'm sure that this is true for some people, but it just wasn't for me. After working so hard in my junior year, I began to struggle with burnout. It has carried over into my senior year, and this combined with being overwhelmed with planning for college and even a little senioritis have made me pretty unproductive this year. Besides doing my enrichment program again, I haven't been doing much for life design. This inaction has made me feel worse about myself, and I started comparing myself to others even more. I look around at my peers and see well-adjusted and driven people working towards long-term goals. I wish that I was more like them, with more focused interests, passion, and the desire to achieve. But then I had a conversation with my friend that changed my whole perspective. I was telling her that I felt like I was a lazy person and not as ambitious as I wanted to be. She replied by saying that she didn't think I was lazy, and also said, maybe you are ambitious, just in a different way than others. What she said has really stuck with me. It made me realize that I didn't have to try to be the same as the people who I envied, because it was okay to take a different approach than them. It was okay to pursue classes and activities in a healthy and balanced manner, and not be willing to put up with certain things. And it was okay to feel like I didn't have a purpose yet. Yes, life design is a class where you work towards finding your purpose, but I feel like I haven't made any significant progress despite being in the program for 4 years. This should make me a failure, but I now realize that maybe the class wasn't meant to teach me anything right away. Instead, it tore down previous ideas I had about myself, school, and others, and made space for a purpose to grow. And I will always be grateful for that. As for my future, I am currently committed to Seton Hall University with a major in elementary education and a minor in music. And for the first time in a while, I'm excited for what the next years will bring. I certainly don't know what it will be, but I know that it can be great. And I know that I will take with me all I learned here, all I learned outside of here, and yes, my ambition.
my ambition to do things that feel purposeful and to be gentler and kinder to myself, and even my ambition to sit around and read books late into the night. Thank you.